Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, Painting the Pieces. My name is Chris, and I had a short on this where I just took a small glass and a stencil that has different circle shapes in it, and then free-handed did some flowers, and it makes a nice pattern, and you can use it for different things. This particular one I was using so that I could cut pieces from it for a collage, but it could be used for journals. And just to give you an idea, make little drawings like this, small paintings, and they can be used for many different things. This is a little large for a bookmark or something of that order, but still gives you the same idea. So now I'm just drawing in the petals here. And it's just a very simple kind of relaxing thing to do, a small painting which you can just complete. I think this took me 40 minutes total, and that was with the pen marks and pencils. I went back in and put in little shapes. So I like to divide mine with angular shapes. I'm using the ruler there just so that I can block out the different colors. And you'll see as I go on how that happens. And I'm going to use the LightWish watercolors again. The watercolors are nice for this because you don't need to do a lot of blending and anything really fancy. You can just lightly put down colors. Got the color chart there handy. I'm not sure exactly how I would use this watercolor set, or maybe any watercolor set, without having done the color charting, because so many of the pans look very dark, and you can see in the swatches there that there's only one that's really dark. Well, maybe the indigo, which is the second row down from the orange, and that lower right corner is the black. But lots of different pans here look black. And so it's always nice to do the swatch so you have some kind of reference. So this first center of a flower that I'm doing, I am using the black, but it's very granular. So I'm going to go over that a couple times to really get that black color down. And this is one of the cadmium reds. So I just go in and play with the colors. You know, with watercolor, you can always go over it. You can make it lighter with the water if you don't like the color that it is. I got a nice salmon color by mixing the red with, at least in this pan, what they call a skin color. That makes a nice sort of salmon or light peach shape. And as you've seen with other paintings that I've done, if you've been here before, I always take some of the colors that I'm using and put them in other spots. So you have a little bit of a reference to that orangish color. Not just the large flower. But I put in a nice book on tape or something to listen to, some music, and then just have a pleasant afternoon drawing and painting these little pieces. And then when I get ready to do a journal entry or a collage, I go back to this envelope that I have of these little pieces and just pull out things and cut them in shapes that I want, or just maybe cut a square so that I'm picking up a piece of this. They're also nice for greeting cards. I've used these pieces for that as well. But just to basically have fun with it. I try to have fun with most of the things that I do. I would say the only things that aren't just pure fun is when you're working on a commission, because you do have something that means something to someone else, maybe a picture of a family member or a picture of a pet, a furry family member, and so you want to make sure that that gives the personality of that person or the pet. So those take a little bit more attention. This is just relaxed play and also a chance to kind of sort through colors. Sometimes you come up with palettes that you wouldn't have thought of before. sometimes with this kind of work, I will go from light to dark, or from one spectrum to another. So maybe on the right side I would have all different shades of blue that move into different shades of purple, that move into different shades of green, let's say, that move into different shades of red and orange. And those are nice for the seasons, if you're working on something like that. And as you might have seen earlier too with my small paintings of the teapots, they really come in handy when I'm doing a painting. I can just pull them out and say, yeah, this palette works well, this teapot looks nice, and then I just base everything on those colors. Gives it maybe a little more freedom, or at least structure, maybe is the word I'm looking for, when you're doing a painting and you're really concentrating on the images that are in that painting, and then you just can grab something quickly and say that palette's going to work. But sometimes you're more focused on the color. So once you have the picture down that you want, you're going to do some color swatching, or as I do, little paintings to see how it's going to come together, and then get a palette that's just particular to that one painting that you're doing. I don't tend to work that way, but I could see why that would be valuable for some. Now at this point you can see that my watercolors are pretty loose, pretty light. I'm just kind of laying down to see what looks good next to each other. And this paper is a Hahnemuhle paper and very textural. I mean, deep valleys, it's thick, it's got deckled edges, it's just a very nice paper. It is a watercolor paper. But it would take kind of a lot of harsh treatment, let's just say that. Not just in watercolor, but if I wanted to go at it with pen and eraser and do scrubbing as I do sometimes, this paper is going to be able to take it. So once again, moving that same black into other places. And this isn't so important in something you're going to use as a collage piece or something you're going to cut up. It's just the way that I work. In a large painting, I like to have certain colors in other places so that there is a continuity of that palette, and the eye moves around not thinking, well, this, I don't know, it's sort of a, it separates you, or it does me if I'm looking at something where, let's say, there's a lot of red in a certain corner and then no shades of that red, or even using that red in a mixture in another part of the painting. And you just sort of lose that. This all belongs together. And it's the same thing as I was saying earlier. If I'm working from one side to the other, let's say that I'm using the blue and I'm moving toward the red, still in that blue, as we start to move out, which is the reason I mentioned the purple, I've got red and blue together. And it, of course, is going to read as a purple, but it's going to gradually take us over to that red in a much more transitional way that's pleasing to the eye. I thought about leaving some of these petals white and just having the paper show underneath, but that didn't work. I think I could have gone in with some acrylic white and that would have been fine, but each piece of the painting needed to look painted. So that's why I abandoned that idea. I don't usually care in things like this, just because I'm recording it and telling you about it. You saw I just took a spot out there. If they run into the other piece, it doesn't bother me, because when I'm coming back in with the pencil and the markers, you can just play with that area and it'll look fine, especially with a collage or a journal entry, or a greeting card for that matter. That's one of those salmon shades I was talking about. It looks like it's reading a little bit more pink here, but working in some blue areas here. This particular watercolor set, the LightWish, that has a lot of different blues, and I like blue, so that's really helpful for me. Sky blue and ultramarine blue, and as you can see down here, you put it on a little more thickly, and it's a completely different kind of blue than when I was just using a lot of water with this, per usual, with either an acrylic or any water-based paint. This is more of the turquoise. You're getting the idea more here too when I put the angular shapes in. In this case I used a ruler, but I used triangles and other things that when you see that separation of, let's say, that center flower that's on the right, instead of painting the whole thing black or the whole thing orange, putting that cut in just gives you another little piece of color that's different. And I like the angular shapes, maybe even thought of more like a stained glass. So now in this section here, you can see where that dividing line is. I'm trying to keep everything in the bottom half of that, the more dark blue. I've mixed a little indigo with ultramarine pan. I personally prefer pan paints over tubes, even in watercolors. Just, I think, easy access. And I like to use watercolors to lay original colors down just to see if I'm going to like how something works with something else. And sometimes I go over that with an acrylic if I need it to be a little less transparent and a little more stable. But in either case, I put a fixative on it and then eventually varnish. Now that pink with the red is way too close, that petal with the large circular shape, so I'll go back in and work on that. Also, I don't know if this happens to you, but when I'm working on shapes like this, I start to think about, well, this would make a nice bird, or this would make a nice fish, so I might put colors in that I think are going to lend themselves to that. If I decide that I want to make it a little bit more whimsical. I have some additions of animals, like that little piece that I just did of the orange there. I was thinking that just looks like a little fish. So right now all these watercolors are just one layer, and they're looking pretty light. For the reason that I said, I'm just trying to get them laid in. So eventually the blacks and the reds and things, I want to go much darker than this. So I'll put on another layer after they've dried. And these dry very quickly, so that's not a problem. This paper is really soaking up the watercolors, so that's fun. And this is an umber of some kind. This is the 48 pan set. So you can think, what kind of variety am I going to get of these different colors? You're starting to get an idea. This, I had a green there, and I'm going in and putting the olive green. That's another thing, if people have done or watched past videos, this olive green is just a favorite. And I won't just use it in that spot. I will move it around. So now I've gone back in and changed that petal because it was just too close in color to the body of that flower as it stands right now. Darkening the red. And sometimes I do this when I'm just keeping busy, but my mind is thinking, what am I going to do with those petals on the left-hand side, the ones that are still white in the picture? While I'm thinking about that, I can be working on another area. this will give you a chance to see the painting just laid out, how the colors go down. And then when it's finished, you can see how the additional pieces come in. So now this is that olive green that I like so much. And because it's more of a darker, it doesn't just read green. Even in person, it doesn't. It's kind of a brownish green. I wanted to have that in different places, so that's what's happening at this point. And going back in with that black, as I mentioned before. You can see, for me, how much better that looks. I like the granular. I don't mind that, but in this case, I wanted something really dark in some place in the painting. And now these were petals that I was going to leave white, but it just didn't look good, so I went back in and I'm just putting in some off-white. Now that looks better to me because every area of the paper is painted. I wanted to move in a little more closely. This is a Tom Studio pen, which I purchased, and it has refillable inks. Very nice pen to hold and use, and I've got 3 or 4 different kinds of inks in different colors. This is the black. And this is certainly a really playful time with it. Just let the watercolors dry and go back in with different inks and pens and markers and just have fun with the finished painting here. I can see where this is going to work on a greeting card that I'm thinking about right now, especially for spring. I'm going to do some winter pieces like this as we move toward the fall. I'm sorry that this side of the paper is not moved over. For some reason, it looks like the camera in the phone went to a different magnification without me touching it. So that's an interesting thing. I'm just outlining some of the petals just to get a little bit more definition. The other thing, the people that are following me or watched other videos, they know I like polka dots, so I always put in some circles to be filled in. Now this at the extreme left, as you can see, that just looked like a fish to me, so I finished it off. And maybe while you're watching this, you're getting some ideas of some journal entries you've made and think, oh, I could cut a little piece of that, add some color to it. And when you use a fixative, you put this down and the watercolor is set, you can certainly write over it and do whatever you want to do. Add photographs for your journal entries. I did buy a set of Sharpies that are different colors. So that's going to do it for me. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you got some ideas, or you'll try this just as a nice afternoon of having some fun and putting images down. You think about liking and subscribing so that you can see the new videos that are coming. Filling in those dots, as I said. More polka dots. In the final frames, you'll get the finished piece as well. Thanks everyone for watching. Take care. Have a good week.